Hello. Just wait a few seconds here to see who all pops on before I get rolling. Welcome, welcome. Awesome. Everyone was ready to go. All right. Okay, so hi, hello, hi Jamie, hi Nicole, hi Alyssa, Danny, Jody, Ida. Wow, there's lots of you. Hi from the UK, cool. Hi, welcome. So glad that all of you are here. Just want to kind of give you a plan, the format for how this is going to look. I have 4 different main topics that I'm going to cover, and I'm going to go live 4 separate times. So at the end of one topic, I'll end the video, and then I'll give us a few minutes. I'll let you know how many minutes I'm going to give, and then I'll come back on another live video, and that way it'll separate my videos, so if people watch later, they don't have to watch a 2-hour long video to find the topic they want. They can just find the topic by each separate video. That'll just make it easier for people in the future, and it'll give us all a time to take a little break. So my plan for this first video is to just kind of give an intro, kind of an overview of who I am, how I got here, and kind of an overview of the Western medicine model treatment. The second video is going to be on insurance and PIPAC. That'll be the shortest video. The third video will be the longest one, which is a reason why I know a lot of you are here. That's the alternative treatments that I've done in the past and that I'm doing now, and kind of overview of just the knowledge that I've gained in alternative medicine through this. And then the last video will be on mental, emotional treatment, more that side of treatment and things. And then we'll kind of wrap up. Please feel free to ask questions during the video as they come up. So feel free to just type in questions in the chat. Likely I'll answer the questions as I go, but at the end of each video, I'll always go through the questions just to make sure I answer all of them. So feel free to just enter questions in as they come up, or enter them towards the end, and I'll do my best to get to all of those. I'm expecting the whole thing will take between 90 minutes and 2 hours is what I'm expecting. I will make sure the videos post here after, and then I'm going to figure out how to post them to YouTube as well at some point. So no worries if you can't stay the whole time. Okay, so one main thing, and I'm going to keep saying this the whole time, this is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I am not a medical professional of any sort. So these videos are geared towards people who have been diagnosed with appendix cancer or know someone diagnosed with appendix cancer, and just want to hear information from someone who's been walking this journey for a little while. So I'll be using a lot of terminology relating to appendix cancer. So if that's not you and you don't know what I'm saying or need clarification, feel free to pop that in the chat as well, and I'm happy to clarify if any of the terminology doesn't make sense to you. So my name is Ariel. I am 31 years old. I grew up in a family. Hi everyone. Hi. I grew up in a family that is very athletic and involves themselves in a whole array of athletic endeavors. I would say we live a very healthy, holistic lifestyle for the most part. We try to eat healthy. We try to get outside as much as possible. I have competed in all different sports. More recently, competing in bodybuilding has been my big one as an adult, but I've always been interested in just movement in general, weightlifting, running, yoga, that sort of thing. I've been a personal trainer and group fitness instructor for over a decade now. I've worked with clients who are from all different demographics, all different ages, all different abilities. I've done a little bit of bodybuilding coaching, nutrition coaching, um, workshops relating to movement, workshops relating to weightlifting, and I really enjoy teaching in that way and sharing what I know about fitness and wellness and all of those things. So hence me being here. I've gotten a lot of questions, especially recently, and as people come in who have just recently been diagnosed, I get a lot of the same questions. And so I'm hoping that these videos kind of help address a lot of those questions. But I'm always happy to, outside of these videos, to answer questions or to help spread any knowledge that I have. So always feel free to reach out to me personally as well. So before my diagnosis, I was getting ready for nursing school. I am a single mom. My son was 18 months old at this time when I was diagnosed. So I was working 3 jobs, getting ready for nursing school, and I started to have a pain when I would have gas or a bowel movement. Just a sharp pain for about 5 seconds, and then it would go away completely. And I thought this could be period related. I thought maybe I was kind of bloated. I didn't think too much of it, but when it just kind of persisted through a full menstrual cycle and then beyond, I thought, this isn't normal, and the pain is really sharp, even though it completely dissipates and goes away. So I went in for a regular OB checkup, and did my usual workup, and then had her palpate, and she said, it does feel thickened. Let's go ahead and get an ultrasound and just see what we find, if there's anything there. And what they found was a grapefruit-sized mass growing around one of my ovaries. And so everything happened very quickly. After that, they were suspecting it was some sort of ovarian cancer, which is extremely common for women who are walking this path. That's extremely common for the initial diagnosis to be thought to be ovarian. It likes to go for the ovaries because that's where the growth hormone is, and cancer likes to proliferate. So I was rushed to Arizona Oncology. I was living in Flagstaff at the time, so rushed to Arizona Oncology in Phoenix. Went in to have surgery to have this mass removed, not knowing what all they would need to take out, but agreeing that they should take out whatever they need to give me the best shot at the longest life possible. So what happened then was she ended up giving me a full radical hysterectomy. So ovaries, tubes, cervix, uterus, were all taken out, part of my omentum, part of the peritoneal lining, and then she attempted to kind of take out as much of the smaller tumors that she saw had spread all over the majority of my abdominal organs. I've already had my gallbladder out 8 months prior, so that one was gone. So she basically took out everything she could, besides parts of the intestines and that. So then about a week later, I should mention as well, as I told you, my son was 18 months old at the time. I was still breastfeeding. That was a big deal for me to stop breastfeeding, almost as intense as having a full radical hysterectomy a week after my 30th birthday. Having to stop breastfeeding before I was ready or he was ready was really, really traumatic and really awful, and something I still have trouble processing, in some ways more than the hysterectomy. So that was a big deal for me. A week later, the pathology came back as appendix cancer, and we dove headfirst into all the research that was available, specialists, and what needed to happen next. So, quick overview of everything that happened for Western medicine, the Western medicine model. I got my port placed for chemo shortly after that. I started on Folfox with Avastin, was the chemo that I started with. Oh, I should mention my pathology was high grade with signet ring features, moderate to poorly differentiated. So knowing that it was more aggressive, typically those with high grade start with chemo and hope to get to a place where they can have surgery, versus the low grade typically starts with surgery and then sometimes they have to do chemo after. That seems to be a big common difference between low grade and high grade. So I started with Folfox with Avastin, hoping that that would knock down the tumors enough that it would make me a candidate for the HIPEC surgery, which, as we all know, is kind of the gold standard in the Western medicine model for treatment. So after about 10 rounds of chemo, I had a laparoscopic surgery to go in just to look, an exploratory laparoscopic surgery where the surgeon went in to see how chemo had worked and if I would be a candidate for the HIPEC surgery. She determined that I would not be. It was too widespread all over particularly my small intestine. It was all over, but so much on my small intestine that she knew if she was going to do HIPEC, in order to do a full debulking, she would have to take out big chunks of my organs, which would render me, I would probably have an ostomy bag and have a lot harder recovery. And the fact that my quality of life at this moment was good, she didn't want to mess with that. And so I'll talk a little bit about how we landed on the doctor that I am with now. So as you all know, specialists are hard, can be challenging to find. The places where you can look to find specialists, ACPMP has a map where you can find specialists near you. PMP PALS also has a similar map. I had 4 consults with different appendix cancer specialists kind of in my region. I really wanted to find a doctor that I resonated with and that I believed in, and that they believed in me, and that I felt like there was a good vibe there. And so it was important to me to get multiple opinions. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, how to know if a doctor resonates with you and how to find multiple opinions. But first, so I had a consult with Dr. Baumgardner at UCSD in San Diego, and all of these doctors I actually really loved and thought I could go with any of them. And then I had a consult with Dr. Foster through University of Nebraska, in Omaha. I had a consult with Dr. Raouf, who is out of the City of Hope in LA. And I had a consult with Dr. Lambert, who is through the Huntsman Cancer Institute in Salt Lake City. And that's who I'm with now. I really vibed with her. She was the only female doctor I had a consult with. That felt like a big connection I had with her, just being female. She also has a lot of experience in palliative care, which means she she weighs quality of life very heavily. She's not a surgeon who just wants to go in and cut no matter what, or do surgery no matter what. And that felt really important to me, that she was looking at the whole picture. And not, again, not that the other docs weren't doing that, but I just felt that she seemed like the best fit. And not only that, the location of Salt Lake City, being from northern Arizona, and Salt Lake City and the surrounding areas being similar geography, ecology, similar lifestyle, seemed to fit what's best, versus moving from Arizona to California seemed like a bigger deal. So and I'll talk about this a couple times too, you know, I am a single mom. I'm lucky to have a lot of help from my parents. My parents are both in the medical field. My mom is a nurse. My dad is a retired paramedic firefighter. Both of them kind of semi-retired, conveniently for me, right before my diagnosis. They obviously had different retirement plans, but luckily it worked out that they were able to be there for me and have been there for me since the beginning, helping to be my medical advocates. And at the end of the day, we ended up selling our house in Flagstaff and moving to Salt Lake, or to Ogden, right outside of Salt Lake City, in order for me to be closer to specialist care. Flagstaff, where we're from, has one, or did at the time only have one oncologist and one oncology center, which is not where you want to be when you have a rare diagnosis and a rare cancer. And I feel better being in a system where all of the doctors that I see are all under the same umbrella. So my oncologist, my surgeon, specialist, my OB, my primary care, all of my doctors are under the same system, which makes it really convenient for sharing information, sharing records. If anything does happen, if and when I go to the hospital, it makes it really easy for them to see who I am and what meds I'm on and all of that. And that was something that I wasn't getting in Arizona. So, okay, so after the laparoscopic surgery, we found out I wasn't a candidate for HIPEC. We had already done a consult with Dr. Raouf, who is the head of a clinical trial called PIPAC, which that clinical trial, the last time I heard, is on pause right now, but I know they're working to bring it back. But I do want to speak to it just a little bit. So I ended up getting approved for the PIPAC clinical trial. I did 2 rounds of that surgery, 2 rounds of the PIPAC surgery in LA, and was doing chemo alongside that. Sometime between then, I started taking a different chemotherapy. So I did 12 rounds total of Folfox and Avastin, and then I ended up doing 13 rounds of FOLFIRI, some of that with Avastin. So I've done 25 rounds of chemotherapy total to this point. Now, when they did the laparoscopic surgery, she took 1 biopsy, and that biopsy came back negative. And she kind of shrugged her shoulders, saying, you know, there's, you know, a high likelihood that you kind of scrape the wrong area. You know, I try to scrape the part that looks like cancer to me, but, you know, the fact that you only take 1 biopsy and it comes back negative isn't conclusive enough. But it's good, all in all. But they wanted to keep me on chemo just because she could visibly see what looked like cancer. And that the chemo seemed to have been working to knock that down. So I continued on chemo. I did the first PIPAC surgery. They took 4 biopsies during that PIPAC surgery. Those all came back negative for cancer. So this was even more stumping, more of a stump for the doctors. But again, he thought still not super conclusive, because visibly what they could see with their eyes looked like a lot of cancer in there. Meanwhile, my labs, my cancer marker labs, CA125 and CEA are the two that I monitor. Both of those were in the normal range. Pretty much since I started chemo, like shortly after starting chemo, my numbers came down, and I should mention one of them was up in the 1500s and the other was up in the thousands as well. So really started out very, very high when I was initially diagnosed, but both came back down to the normal level. And then my CT scans didn't show anything. So that's another common thing, is that CT scans have a hard time picking up on tumor activity unless it's like a, larger mass that's growing, or, it's a specialist who can tell because of other clues that there might be tumor activity happening. But either way, scans were clear, labs were clear. So far, biopsies all coming back negative. So we decided after the second, why no CA19-9? Oh, someone asked, why did I not take the CA19-9 cancer marker screening? I did have that one in the beginning. It wasn't elevated as high as the other two, and it came down very quickly. I think after surgery, it came back down into the normal range. And so they wanted to just continue to track the ones that were the highest for me, because those were going to be the most sensitive, essentially, since the 19-9 was in the normal range very quickly. We were just going to follow the ones that were more specific to what was showing up for me. But that's a good question. So we decided going into the third PIPAC that he would take a lot more biopsies. And based on those biopsies, then we would determine if we should do the third round of PIPAC and what we should do continuing on. And he was going to take biopsies from the mesentery and from more kind of risky areas, just to give us a clearer picture of, are the biopsies really coming back negative, or what? And so he took 8 biopsies the second time we did PIPAC, and all of them came back negative. So when people ask me, how did PIPAC work for you? Did it go well? It's hard for me to answer that question directly, because my biopsies were coming back negative even before PIPAC. He could see that PIPAC had knocked down what looked like before cancerous or scarring areas. So he saw a difference for sure from PIPAC. So did it do something beneficial? I think it probably did. Was that the thing that did it for me? I don't know. And I actually can't really answer that question at all when people, ask me, what was it? Is it the Chinese medicine? Is it the high dose vitamin C? Is it, I can't say, I don't know. And so just want to hammer that home here, that I'm certainly not telling anyone, this is what you should do, this is what's right for you, this is what did it for me, because I don't even know. I'm just purely relaying, this is my story, this is the information I've learned, and this is where I'm at now. And I just hope that it benefits someone at some point. So, all right, how to know if doctors resonate with you. For me, do I feel unrushed, and is it easy for me to ask a lot of questions? I heard a quote that said, we only hear about 50% of what our doctors say, and then we only actually absorb and remember like 25% of that. So having someone there to take notes for you can be helpful. I've also asked if I could record them. So I've recorded just an audio track with my conversation with my doctor, so I can go back and listen. Especially in the beginning, you're still kind of in shock, and going into the doctor's office, for me, it was very felt very blurry. It feels like an out-of-body experience. It's really hard to use your thinking and understanding brain. So having another person be your brain there can be really important. Figuring out what matters to you most when you're finding a specialist and when you're interviewing doctors. So does it matter to you how they treat you, their bedside manner, how kind they are, how gentle they are? Or does it matter more to you what their history is, how much experience they have? Those can sometimes be two different things and different for everybody. People might care more about how they're treated versus what the doctor's history is. And for me, geography was also a big part of it, is going to Salt Lake versus going to Omaha, Nebraska made more sense. So all of those factors played a part for me. So it's important to know what matters to you most. And then when you're getting multiple opinions, do the multiple opinions that you've gotten, do they agree? For me, all of the the 4 doctors who I talked with, they all generally agreed on what my plan should be. They all had, I shouldn't even say they all, one doctor had a little bit of a different take on what he would do in surgery, and it wasn't a huge difference. It was just, I forget exactly what it was. It was like taking out a, part of an organ or something, that he would maybe consider that more heavily than the other doctors would. And so understanding if the opinions that you get are different, why are they different? Where are they coming from then? It felt good to me to know that all 4 doctors who I met with all knew of each other, and then they all kind of generally agreed on the same treatment plan. That made me feel stable as to, okay, I'm making the best decision for me. Another thing to consider is how well organized is the clinic or the hospital staff. Do they seem organized for when I call? Do they stay organized with my records? Are they kind and helpful to me over the phone? Are they easy to get a hold of? I was having a really hard time with all of those things in Arizona. And that was a big key factor for us moving, is things weren't clicking between doctors in Arizona, between getting records sent here and there, and it just felt like it was more of this added stress. So that was a big part for me, is the staff well organized? Another thing you can do when you're interviewing specialists is ask questions. Have you seen other patients with my pathology? How many patients have you seen with my exact pathology? Have you seen other patients my age? Do you consider yourself an appendix cancer specialist? There tends to be kind of a rule of thumb that over a certain amount of HIPEC surgeries makes them a HIPEC surgery specialist. Now, if you're a HIPEC surgery specialist, are you an appendix cancer specialist? Are you necessarily both of those things? Those are all totally reasonable questions to ask a doctor. And certainly if any doctor puts up a fit or gets disgruntled about you asking for second opinions, that for me would be kind of an instant no, because especially in a rare cancer, really smart doctors and specialists know that the more information, the better. And all of the doctors who I met with were very open with communicating with other specialists. And even, when I was getting the PIPAC surgery done and I still had my specialist in Utah and my oncologist in Utah, they would all communicate about what was going on. I actually had a complication after one of the PIPACs, ended up going into the hospital in Utah. The doctors in Utah were in direct contact with Dr. Raouf in LA. So that felt really good to have everyone kind of congruent and on the same page. So it's not weird at all to ask for a second opinion or to ask your doctors, can you please write me a referral for a second opinion, asking your oncologist. That should not be weird or something that someone lowers their brow about. So getting multiple opinions, many doctors can get you in for a virtual consult very quickly. I know for a lot of people, traveling and driving to different states is not not an option. A lot of now with COVID, getting a consult virtually or over the phone is actually a lot more doable. You can call your insurance and ask, what do I need to do in order to get a second opinion? Many times your insurance will cover second opinions if you have a referral from your doctor or under certain stipulations. And then if not, did you know that you can pay for a consult with a doctor out of pocket? Especially in the beginning, if you're just wanting to get multiple opinions just to see, am I doing this right? Am I on the right? Am I on the right path? You can pay for a consult out of pocket, and I did that for multiple of my doctors. Some are a couple $100 for a consult. One was over $1,000. But that's something too, that if you need help paying for that, or people are asking, what can I do? How can I help? Can we set up a fundraiser? Can you help me gather funds so that I can see a doctor, so that I can get a second opinion? There's a lot of people who want to help, I've found, and a lot of people who ask, how can I help, need some direction, and we don't always know what we need when we're in crisis mode. So when something comes up that you think this would be a lot easier if this was just taken care of, put that on someone else to take care of for you and see if that's something you can ask for. It's important to have all of your records, copies of labs, scans. In the beginning, your operative reports, any information you have. It's really important to ask for a copy of those things. So when you go in to get a scan done, you can oftentimes tell them, hey, I'd like my own copy. And a lot of times they'll print you a second copy of a CD right then and there, or they'll have you come pick it up in a few days. I found it to be a lot easier to have my own copies of everything, so that when I was going for second opinions, instead of that'll be the number one thing that halts that process, is not being able to get your records sent in time. And if you're relying on your doctor's office or whoever to send records to a different state, or maybe they have to mail some of them, not all of them go through digitally, it can be kind of a madhouse. But if you have them all and you have copies of them, you can fax them, you can mail them, you can send them priority mail to the doctor's office right away. So having all of your own copies of everything to make that quicker. If you're on hold for a long time when you're calling different doctor's offices, asking for a direct line. I found that a lot of times in the beginning, I'm making calls. I had, press 4 for this, press 5, and you have to go through the whole automated thing. When you get a hold of someone, hey, is there a direct line that I can call to get right to a person next time, so that I don't get the runaround asking those questions? And I realize that I am very privileged and speak from a place of privilege of the place that I live and the support that I have with being able to up and leave our home and seek out this specialist care. And so I just want to acknowledge that I know that doesn't feel as doable for everyone. And I just want to offer any kind of advice that I can from my experience, hopefully alleviating some of that stress. So Getting organized right away. I was that patient who came into her appointment with a binder or with a like sling bag, what do you call it, a briefcase, like a briefcase full of my records with dividers for each topic. Each part of my records were divided by radiology reports, so CT scans, images of any kind, MRIs, and then labs, and then operative reports from surgeries, and then insurance information or other miscellaneous information. And they were all organized by date, separated in that way. And every time I went into a doctor's appointment, I'd bring my whole briefcase and have everything there. So when they say, oh, well, I want to, check and see what your labs were on this, the last one, oh, it's right here. And I just have it right there on me. So, and I still have that binder, and it's like, my safe thing that has all my stuff, very important. I found that to be really helpful. I also started a notebook right away. In the notebook, I would flip to a new page every time I was going to meet with a different doctor or specialist, or even my natural health practitioners for that matter. And I put their name on the top. As questions come up, I'd have my notebook in my bed with me. So when you're laying there and you're solving all your problems at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep, you can turn over and open your notebook and write down those questions so that they're all there for you when you go see the doctor. You don't forget to ask any of those questions. So I have my notebook still that I continue to use. I have a page where I have all of the names of everyone who I've talked to and the phone numbers, so I don't have to dig through my phone and dig through scrap pieces of paper where I've written down people's names and numbers. I just have one page with everyone's name, this doctor, UCSD, phone number, Dr. Lambert, Huntsman, phone number, so it's all there, and I can go back to that page. Reference numbers with insurance. You never know when you might need this information, and I certainly didn't know or think that I would need this detailed of information. When I was trying to get into the PIPEC trial, which I'll speak to more in the next video, insurance denied me multiple times, denied me to get into this clinical trial, and I was delayed for months and months. And I'm not going to go into the whole story, but what saved me was writing down every conversation that I had with an insurance person, writing down their name, writing down the reference number of the call. So every time you call, they have a reference number for that call, and then writing down details of what they said, some bullet points of what was discussed. Because if you don't write that down, there's no way in hell you're going to remember, and no one else is going to be able to remember either. And certainly the insurance companies don't like to dig up that information, and probably won't either. Okay, 2 more things in this video. Difficult conversations. So making it clear in the beginning what I was and wasn't willing to hear from my doctors. For me personally, I had no interest in hearing hard numbers of prognosis, and I made that very clear right away in the beginning. And this is just me, again, what I feel like I needed and what was helpful for me was not to hear that the typical prognosis for someone with your pathology is this percentage survival rate after 5 years. I'm a single mom. My son's father is not and has not ever been involved at all in my pregnancy or birth. It was not of interest to me to know what the percentage was. All I needed to know is that some people survive. Some people survive more than 5 years and more beyond that. And that's all I needed to know, and that's good enough for me, because I thought, why not me? to survive that. So I made it very clear from my doctors, and they all respected that. And but in the same way, you know, I also said I also don't want information to be hidden from me. You know, I want to know what you think genuinely. I don't want to feel like I'm being lied to, but I don't need to know those hard numbers. And then certainly when people, average civilians, friends or family, asks those types of questions, I also make it really clear, you know, it's just really not helpful for me to answer that question for you or for me. And I said, you know, if you're really interested, you can actually Google it and look it up if you're interested in knowing that. Keep asking questions. So if something is confusing from your doctor or you're not sure, ask why. Say, that doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain it in a different way? Those are all, you know, reasonable questions to continue to ask. And then just in general, telling friends and family what is or isn't helpful in language, you know, in a gentle, kind way. You know, I'm really stressed right now. I'm really overwhelmed right now. And I just don't have the emotional space to even hear what you're saying. Can you just be with me without asking questions? Can you just sit with me without, I just don't want to talk, or I'm not interested in talking about this. Just being really clear with what's helpful and what's not. Lots of people have a lot of different advice, as we all know. Especially for me, it felt like the world that I was in before, you know, a lot of people around me use natural health, natural healing modalities for different things. And so people have very strong opinions on different things, and juice cleanses, and are you drinking kombucha, and are you, you know, all of these different things. And it was just like, it's almost like you get to this point where the more you hear, the more it's just like the opposite of what they're trying to do is help, and it doesn't feel helpful. And in fact, it feels more overwhelming. So I would start to tell people, you know, could you please do some research on that and send me an email about it? And then when I'm feeling ready, I'll look at that and I'll look over that. But I'm not in a place where I'm ready to hear that right now. Yeah, someone said unsolicited advice is the worst. And I think, you know, you can gently put people in their place, and then they get it pretty quickly. And I've actually had friends who have done that, where they go on to research a specific, you know, whatever, herbal concoction or this diet plan or whatever, do a bunch of research on it, give me the bullet points of what you learn, send me an email, and I will look at it when I have the time and the space and the mental capacity to receive it. Because it's not really helpful to just keep receiving information if you're not ready for it. Asking for help. I already said this, but people want to help. People want a job. Give them options of what could be helpful. I got a lot of socks. I got a lot of blankets. I'm the sugar lecture. Yeah, Nicole says the sugar lectures. Yeah, stop eating sugar. I'm going to talk about that in the alternative video, or alternative medicine video. But, you know, I received a lot of gifts and a lot of things that I'm so grateful for. Truly, I have so many wonderful blankets, and I was so cold, and with neuropathy, I loved having my blanket forts in every room in my house. However, people feel helpless. There's people who are like, I want, you know, what can I do? Can I send, you know, something that and this is what I've told to caregivers and people who want to help. It's helpful to ask the person, right? Hey, I was thinking of either giving you a blanket or sending a meal. Is there one that would be more helpful to you? Or, hey, I'm thinking of making a meal for you. Which night is good? That's it. Because being asked, what do you need, is, at least for me, it felt like, wow, I don't even know what I need. And then this guilt of like, oh, it's hard to even ask for what you need, even if I did know. But, having the confidence and having those things laid out in specifics, like, okay, this one thing would be helpful. Could you just vacuum my house? That would actually be really helpful. Can you just vacuum my house? Like, people would love to do that. I mean, like, if someone close to you had this crazy diagnosis and you said, what can I do to help? And they said, can you just vacuum my house? You would be happy to go over there and vacuum their house, like that would make you feel so good to know that you were doing this thing that was really, really helpful for them. So just keeping that in mind, that people want to help. Delegate as much as possible to other people so that you can focus on the things that are most important for you. And then protecting your space and protecting your energy. I already spoke a little bit to that. This is not what I need right now. I'm overwhelmed and can't make a decision. I'm in a place where I can't receive suggestions, so it's not helpful to hear that. Research that for me and get back to you. Yeah, Jamie says chores, errands, cleaning the bathroom especially. How do you deal with people who say you look great when you feel terrible on the inside? Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I have my wig, my fake eyebrows, and makeup on, so yeah, I look good. That they act like there is nothing wrong with you. Yeah, that's a really common one too. And for me, it felt like, all my life I've wanted to be, I seek to be strong and fit and athletic and capable. Being told things like, you look so good, you're so skinny. Oh, I wish I was skinny like you. Like, for me, I just personally, skinny is not a word I want used to describe me, because to me, skinny, in my mind, skinny feels weak and I'm incapable and small, and I'm kind of over this societal pressure as women, to be smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until we can just be the tiniest little things and disappear. That's not something I'm interested in. I'm interested in being strong and taking up space. And yeah, and it's hard to know, like, what is the right thing to say to someone, oh, you look so good. That's not really helpful when I feel awful, and or sometimes making a joke. This is maybe kind of messed up, but when it gets to be like over and over again, people are saying the same things and you feel beat down, kind of making a joke out of it sometimes can be can help kind of put people in their place and also make you feel a little more lighthearted about it. Obviously, take this with a grain of salt, take it or leave it, but wow, you look so good, you look amazing. And yeah, you wouldn't even know that I feel sick and terrible and that I think about my death and mortality all the time. It's kind of crazy, huh? I mean, whoa. Yeah, so just putting people in their place, maybe in a gentle or humorous way of, yeah, Christine says, I joke with them, I don't look like a cancer patient. Yeah, and it's just another reminder that how we look on the outside isn't a reflection of what's happening in our minds and in our hearts and in our bodies. Yeah, I gained weight when I got sick. I get nervous now when I start gaining more weight. Yeah, right. Like, and we have, I think as cancer patients, we have with this specific cancer, we have such this like, different way of looking at like, what does it mean to be healthy? Because for me, I want to have some meat on my bones, because if I go to the hospital and I'm already super skinny and losing a lot of weight, I don't have a lot of reserves. And I want to have some more reserves, even if that's some fat on me. Nicole says, I've made a joke when someone said, wow, you lost so much weight. I said, yeah, I haven't had solid food in months. Yeah, so just not taking any of that stuff personally and knowing that all that stuff that people say is more a reflection of themselves and making themselves feel comfortable. I don't know what to say, so I'm just gonna say something, you know, and it's not really a reflection of you. I love the research that just for me. I'm just going through the questions here. I'm all done with the first video, so I'm just gonna go through. Someone says, I have someone that shovels for me every time it snows. It's amazing. Unsolicited advice. I told my doctor I didn't want to know. Live each day as your last. I can get all of my labs and visit write-ups through my chart through my doctor's office. Yeah, my chart is awesome. Someone says if you have access to a spreadsheet program, you can track your labs and chart them. I've done that. My video consult with Dr. Wagner was free. I was amazed, and Dr. Veerpong was $80. So yeah, it's not, you know, people think it's, you know, gonna be tons of money or a lot of work. It actually, you know, when you get boots on the ground, it's not too bad. Dr. Baumgartner was $300. He reviewed my scans and pathology. Oh, thanks, Christine. As some of you know, many opinions. Yeah, continuing to get opinions even as things move on, not even just in the beginning. Okay. Okay, and then someone asked about vitamin C. I'm going to discuss that in the third video. It's coming. I'm going to go through all of everything I've done, natural treatments, what I've done in the past and what I'm doing now. So next video is going to be a short one, and I'll come back in just about 3 minutes. So it's 1:54. So at 1:58, we'll be back for the second video. Same time, same place, same deal. Okay, see you soon.